Welcome to Show You the Money.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Show You the Money with attorneys Rob and Keith Shindler, founders of Shindler and Shindler. They're brothers, they're trial lawyers, and they're known for going head-to-head with insurance companies to get real results for injury victims across Northern Illinois. I'm Sean O'Connor, and today we're talking about what a personal injury case may actually be worth and the factors that can dramatically change the value of a claim. Gentlemen, good to see you again.
Good afternoon, Sean. How are you?
Sean, looking good.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the feedback. I can use all the affirmation I could get.
I was going to say much better than us, Sean, but that's not necessarily a huge
I was
compliment.
actually waiting for Keith and Rob. You look good also, but okay.
Yeah, we get nothing. That's on the next one. But I will tell you one thing, Sean, before we start. You made a comment on it, and I just want you to know that when you hire us, when you retain us, when you choose us, it's not that you're just getting two brothers who fight for you. It's you're getting two brothers who dress exactly alike. Do you see what I'm saying? This is every morning. Am I right?
Granimals.
We call each other up and we say we're gonna go with the tan suit, right? Look.
Yeah. Looks good. Yeah. Of what I didn't realize is I thought you guys lived together. I didn't know that you could call each other up.
If this doesn't work, Sean, we may be living with each other.
Yeah.
So no pressure. No pressure.
Joe, save a room for me. Let's talk about how, or what are some of the biggest factors that determine how much a personal injury case may actually be worth. How do you get to that number?
The funny thing is, Sean, is that there's people out there, I think most people, because if you've never been involved in an accident, and this is not something that you've had to face before, is that there's like a big calculator on the wall. And you enter a bunch of different numbers, and then you do a minus sign and a decimal. Every case is different. It's so subjective versus objective, and there's so many different things that go into it. It's the medical bills, obviously, your lost time from work, how much you're treating, basically, how often you have to see the doctor. The biggest thing that goes into it is your injury, right? There's all different types of injuries. And so obviously the person who tweaks their neck and goes to a physical therapist for a couple times their case is gonna just naturally be worth less than someone who has a significant injury where there's a fracture, God forbid, where there's surgery, where there's a necessity for injections. So it is a formula, but it's important that people know every single case is different.
Sean, to unbundle Rob's answer, it's first of all, it's not a science, it's an art. So us as artists, our goal is to maximize the value of our client's recovery. And so the elements of damages, of course, you have medical bills. Of course, you have lost wages. And of course, you have a huge component, which is pain and suffering. But we are fortunate enough to represent people that have injuries that include disfigurement, where someone has a scar on their face, someone has a limp, and if someone's 26 years old and they have a limp because they had foot surgery as a result of a accident, and they're going to have a noticeable limp for the next 25 years, 30 years, 60 years, whatever their life expectancy is, that disfigurement is huge. And then you could also have a gigantic component. By gigantic, I know it's not just a legal word, but let's call it a very substantial component for future medical bills. We have clients that they go get a procedure where they're doing some type of a reconstruction of a bone, and they have to put in a metal rod on the femur. Well, the metal rod and the plates and screws that go in there sometimes need to be removed. So there's future medical for that. Just one more point, we're seeing incidences where people have to get something called a spinal stimulator. And that is where an actual, just like it sounds, it's something attached in the spinal area, and it stimulates movement, it stimulates nerve generation. And once you get a spinal stimulator installed, that's a fixed medical bill. However, it needs to be maintained. So I know you asked more of a succinct question, but I wanted to be clear on the answer.
No, I appreciate that. There's a certain obviousness to this in the idea that, some injuries lead to, dramatically larger cases than others, but are there less obvious reasons for why that would be the case?
Well, the one thing that we say to every single client that calls from the get-go, and we say it because we mean it, we don't say it because we should get it on a t-shirt, is that we hope you don't need us. We don't want you to read this. Because there's some lawyers, obviously, they sit there, they're sitting on the windows open and they're listening for the screech of the tires, and they're just hoping and praying that someone's seriously injured. And it's what we do for a living, but in all seriousness, we don't go to sleep at night hoping that someone is tragically injured in an accident. If they are, then obviously we would hope that they would come to us, because we kind of know we know we're capable of. But in answer to your question, it goes back to what we just said. It's the nature. There's some people out there, they think the more bills they get, the higher the bill, the higher the settlement. And although sometimes that's true, it's not everything. It's the nature of the injury. So just like my brother just talked about, if you are involved in an accident and God forbid you fracture your leg and you need surgery and you need to put a rod in there and you need to have that rod and those pins and things taken out, obviously that's gonna generate more of a settlement. But the key is we'll get a case on a Monday, and Tuesday they're asking us how much their case is worth. And that's one of the reasons we chose this topic to talk about, because it's important to note that it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. And what we tell people is the case is going to take care of itself. We're going to put a smile on your face, which is obviously at the end. But the worst part of a case is when it starts, the initial impact, and when your life changes, at least for a significant amount of time. And so you don't want to rush anything. That's the key. The key is that when people want to rush to judgment, they want to get done with the treatment, they want to take care of everything in a matter of moments, you're cheating yourself. You're not only cheating yourself with what kind of settlement you're going to get, but more importantly, you're cheating yourself, because if you don't take care of your health, it's going to come back and cause you future problems.
That makes sense. Right. Yeah. No, there's not a time to be in a hurry, so to speak. What about insurance coverage? I know that plays a factor in as much as the injury itself, in terms of the
So generally, Sean, the way I could answer the question about insurance coverages, it's generally never enough. And what I mean by that is, we have a case that we just settled for a client for $250,000. That's what the liable at-fault driver had in insurance coverage, and our client didn't have something that's called underinsured motorist coverage. Unfortunately, our client's case is probably worth $650,000. I can go on a list of cases. So insurance coverage plays a huge factor in this, and you can't necessarily pick who you're in an accident with. But of course, a large retail store may have unlimited resources, whereas your neighbor driving down the street and runs over your kid who's in a street playing has a much lower cap on their insurance. Huge variable in these cases.
And I think also the important thing to note is that you can get involved in an accident with someone that has a smaller policy, right? And when you buy insurance, you buy certain types of coverages and you buy a policy limit. And whatever that policy limit is, whether it's 25,000 or whether it's $1 million, that's the most that you're able to get. And what we tell clients all the time, and I tell not only clients, I tell anyone that will possibly listen to me, okay? I will pay a toll on the highway. I will tell the toll booth operator, do me a favor. You need to understand that you could buy a $50,000 policy limit for X amount, okay? And if you pay, let's say $1,200 more, do the math, it's $100 a month. You may be able to double that depending on the insurance company, so you can have a $100,000 policy. Now, we're not here to bash the insurance companies, but an insurance agent would rather sell you a lower policy than a higher policy, because that's what he's opening up his company for, the possible exposure. So anyone who's listening to this, review your policy. See if in fact you can get as much as you possibly can, okay? Because in the end, it's going to cost you pennies. And if you get in that accident where the other driver doesn't have sufficient coverage, which is what we unfortunately find, the word, it's like opening up a Christmas present. What I mean by that is, when you settle the case like we just did for this wonderful couple, and we ask them for their underinsurance motorist coverage, you're just hoping and praying that they tell you it's going to be more than what you just settled, because you're going to be able to go after a bigger fish. And if it's there, it just keeps going with what you could recover on behalf of your client.
And on that note, Sean, since we like you, we're telling you should look at your insurance policy.
Okay.
Make sure you have what you think is an adequate amount, and you'll be surprised when the insurance agent gives you a little bit of resistance on increasing it, because the marginal dollar cost versus the large increase in coverage, it doesn't make sense to the insurance agent, but it should make sense to you.
And I think it's important that we note that we care just as much about the toll booth operator as we do about Sean,
Of
right?
course, of
All right.
course.
In case you were doubting how we feel about you, Sean.
No, no, no. Listen. I love a good toll booth operator. Although that job, there's not that many of them anymore.
No, it's not. It's being outsourced.
No
Yep.
wonder I'm not getting callbacks.
So what about? I mean, we're talking about insurance. Let's talk about medical. The medical angle. What starts to happen to a case when the medical records don't match what someone claims they're dealing with?
It happens because there's unfortunately with the medical system, and there's such a burden on medical providers to provide from all the people that are seeking medical treatment that it's hard to get consistency of treatment. So a client can go in to see a doctor today and report what the findings are to the doctor, and then they can go see a PA tomorrow, or the doctor's partner, or some other type of assistant, and there's a rush for the providers to treat these people and get to the next patient. And so we will see sometimes that the symptoms reported to the doctor on day one today aren't consistent with the symptoms that are reported to the doctor when they see him a week later, or the PA, or a month later, or something like that. We sometimes will have to have the patient go back to the doctor, our client go back to the doctor and say, the record on the visit in June doesn't say what I reported to you, which was my neck hurt, I had tingling in my fingers, I had numbness in my hip, something like that. So it's a good point. Good question.
Well, Sean, in any, let me ask you this, in any relationship, it doesn't matter whether it's attorney-client, whether it's doctor-patient, whether it's spouses. One of the most important things in a relationship is consistency, right? You want someone to be consistent. So when you are going to the doctor and you go once or twice, and then you don't go for another couple of weeks, the insurance company sees that, okay? And they ask themselves, if I was injured in an accident and I was seriously in pain, would I go to the doctor a couple times, stop for a few weeks, come back? And they're not interested in excuses or explanations. We can give them the fact that a person has to work, that they're taking care of
Pay
their
their
parents.
bills.
They have to pay their bills, but which is why it's so important that if when you go to the doctor, location, you find someone that's conveniently located so you can consistently go, because don't think for a second that the insurance adjuster is not looking for any type of hole to climb through to pay you as little money as possible. And the consistency is something that's important.
And then just to put a bow to tie up that question is, we find that sometimes clients want to be brave. They don't want to sound like they're complainers to the doctors.
Yeah.
So the client's telling us about these symptoms and we're documenting it. And then we communicate with the insurance company, we document that symptom. And then the insurance company will come back and say, well, the records don't support those symptoms. And so we tell clients to make sure that, leave the braveness at the door. It's super important, not only to make sure you get all the care you need for a particular injury from an accident or other type of negligence case, but to make sure that you're not telling us something different than you're telling the doctors.
Got it. Yeah. So the issue here is that there's a discrepancy, either, and it may be an honest mistake, but the idea that I told my doctor XYZ, it didn't get written down the way that I explained it, or as you said, I'm withholding because I don't want to seem like a complainer at my doctor. But in fact, if in doubt,
By as much as I'm talking, you think I'm charging by the hour, but I'm not. I just want to put one last point on there, and then Rob will go. So there's also,
Is he hogging the conversation? Is it me? Is it me, or who's hogging the conversation? Go ahead. I'll go get you something to drink. I'll be right back.
What happens, Sean, sometimes is there's like a masking injury, masking, masking injury.
Hold on. What is that?
yeah, I gotta go.
Give me an animal.
How do you spell that?
So someone will go into the hospital and they'll have a very serious neck injury, but they also have some hip symptoms or some ankle symptoms. And they have a very serious neck injury, so they're treating that because that's the highest trauma, spinal stabilization, things like that. And then the ankle isn't getting treated until 3, 4, or 5 weeks later when they go back for follow-up and say, oh, my ankle still hurts. And they're like, well, that isn't in the medical records. It's because the pain is being masked on the ankle because they're dealing with the neck.
I see. Does someone, I never really thought of this, but there is that, like, okay, how do I know if my doctor or my doctor's assistant has recorded my, I'll say complaints, my issues? How do I know if they've recorded them properly before it sort of comes out in the wash later? I mean, do people like check their medical record in that way? I mean, is that like normal behavior, or do people need to think about that?
It's a great question. You know, you're going into a doctor, you're not feeling well. You should have one responsibility. That one responsibility is to feel better. The one responsibility is, we tell clients, we want you to feel better than you did before the accident at the end of your treatment. So I think there is ways to do that, though. And the way to do that is rather than ask for the medical bills all at the end, right? The records and all at the end, because it's easier to do that for the law firm. It just is, right? You don't want to deal in piecemeal. But sometimes I think dealing in piecemeal, step by step by step, is the way to protect things exactly what you're talking about. So after every single visit, if you ask that lawyer, if you ask that doctor to send your lawyer a progress note from that particular visit, then we'd rather be able to cure something early on, because once it gets down the road, now you're playing catch up. And it's important to note what you said earlier, is that, you know, if your doctor is recording the wrong things, right? And this is your doctor, this is the person that's supporting you. Just wait till the insurance companies experts get a hold of those records, and then you lose before you even step into court. So that's why this is such a process. This is not this, again, I said earlier, it's not a sprint, right? It's a marathon. And you can't get lazy. You can't get lazy as two brothers representing the client. You can't get lazy as the client. And it really is a village. And if everyone works together, you're going to get the best results.
I get it. Let's leave people with something from your experience. And, you know, I'm curious, what do people misunderstand about how injury cases are valued? You know, when people come to you, what are the misconceptions they have? We just have a couple of minutes left. Are there trends you see?
There's two things that we see happen with clients every now and then. Some clients think that their medical bills multiplied by a certain multiple equal the settlement. And that's not true, because, as I said, it's not a science. This is not mathematics. This is an art class where we are building the case to properly represent the true value of our client's injuries, and looking at the medical records and making the medical records and an argument based on the medical records. So it's not a multiple issue. And then the other problem is, we sometimes have a client who will say to us, well, my friend Tim had an accident and he broke his wrist and he got X number of dollars, and I have a sprained wrist, and so I should get a portion close to what he got for his wrist. So there's a lot of comparison that goes on. I understand it. It is not relevant in calculation the value of the case.
You know, the other thing is, I apologize. What was the word you said? Put a bow?
A bow in it.
Can I use that?
Yeah, put a bow.
Can I use it?
Really, you can do something different. Yeah.
All right.
You get, what did you want to put?
I'm gonna put a wob on it. You know what wob is?
No.
That's bow spelled backwards. See how I did that? All right, to put a wob on it, you know, everyone thinks that you know, the more serious damage there is to the vehicle, this is something else that we see. The more money I'm going to get. And we see cases. A couple of years ago, we had a case where, if you saw the pictures of the video of the car, I'm telling you, Sean, it was a crushed soup can, and you would have thought that how many people died in this accident. And thankfully, the person walked out without a scratch. And we've seen other situations where there's very minimal damage.
Excellent point.
And thank you. And it's how the person was sitting in the car, possibly how the impact occurred, and they fracture their leg, even though if you look at the pictures, it doesn't look like that. So the key is that's why, to circle back, basically what we talked about in the last podcast is the adjuster will call you up at the beginning and say, look, if there was no damage to this car, we're going to give you $500. You take the $500, and then all of a sudden down the road, you realized that there was a fracture that necessitates surgery, that necessitates rehab. And so you need to understand that not every case is the same, right? No. Just like he said, Amen. It's subjective, it's not objective. And just because your friends, cousins, brothers, next door neighbor got X amount doesn't mean that you're entitled to the same, or that you're not entitled to.
Did you want an amen after that?
Amen.
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 Why don't we change the name of the show? Amen. Come on, give me some.
Keith, great to talk to you always. And but we are out of time for this episode. thank you for your expertise, your point of view, and your good humor. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sean, nice to see you. See you next time.
All right. That's it for today's episode of Show You the Money. If you'd like to learn more about working with Rob and Keith Shindler, or if you have questions about your situation, you can visit their website, schindlerandschindler.com, or you can call 847-WE-FIGHT. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to leave us a thumbs up, leave a review, maybe share this episode with someone you know who might have been in an accident. I'm Sean O'Connor. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.